And yes, if you haven't sorted out a gift for your mum this Mother's Day, I could well have your solution, because you can't go wrong with chocolate. That is always welcome. It is in my books at least. And you could make a delicious chocolate cake for your mum, or you could just give her blocks and blocks of the good quality stuff to enjoy whenever she wants. And in today's Friday Food, we are going to get all sorts of chocolatey goodness and advice. And joining me now is Thomas Schnetzler, and he is from Lindt. He is one of only 8 official Lindt chocolatiers in the world, so he knows his stuff when it comes to chocolate. Thomas, thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Oh, this is so good. We love chocolate. This is just saying the word makes me smile straight away.
Glad to hear.
Have you always been a chocolate fan?
I've always been a chocolate fan. I grew up in Switzerland, so we have a very interesting relationship with chocolate in Switzerland, and still eat the most chocolate per capita worldwide.
Do
yes,
you?
Absolutely.
Well, it is very good chocolate in Switzerland, so you can't really go wrong.
It is. We've been making chocolate for a long time in Switzerland, and we at Lindt, we've been making it for over 175 years. So
wow.
We've worked our way out to make really, really good, delicious chocolate.
And we'll talk a bit about what does make good chocolate, particularly Lindt chocolate, in just a moment, because it is renowned as some of the best in the world. How do you become a chocolatier?
Very good question. I did an apprenticeship as a pâtissier and chocolatier, as like a base. So that's in Switzerland. There's an apprenticeship as a chocolatier per se. So that went for 3.5 years. And then, so you just sort of build up your knowledge on everything chocolate. Then I joined Lindt just close to 20 years ago now. And, get to experiment and taste chocolate every day. So it really is a dream job.
What a job. Goodness me. And so one of only 8 Lindt chocolatiers, though. So, these are lofty heights. And what makes you an official Lindt chocolatier?
I guess there's lots of people at Lindt that are working with chocolate, but in my role, so we sort of get to develop new recipes. We get to talk to customers about chocolate and what makes Lindt chocolate so special as well. So I guess that's that sort of role. There is only eight around of us. So a lustrous little group of chocolate aficionados.
Yeah, and you're all, if they're all like yourself, because the smile on your face is very large, and of course it would be because you work with chocolate every day of your life. Now in terms of the ingredients there, though, I mean that's what's key, isn't it? To have quality ingredients, and I've got in my hands here, which I've got, apart from all of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I've got about 12 blocks of chocolate here.
Excellent.
Which go from the range of the dark, which is phenomenal, and a huge array of dark chocolates. But I've also got these chocolate beans, these cocoa beans.
That's right. I really wanted to show you where it actually all begins, because like all food things, the quality of ingredients is really paramount. So that, especially for something like a dark chocolate, where the dark chocolate flavor is really the key element of it, the quality of the cacao bean, where it's sourced from, and how it's actually treated at the plantation, and then how we treat it as chocolatiers, really is what actually makes the difference. And even if you just give those cocoa beans a bit of a smell, they have a...
Well, you know what I did before in the news, when the news was on before, I thought I'll give it a smell, which I did, and I'll do that now. It smells beautiful. But I also just actually chewed on it a little bit, which I think was probably a mistake, because it's very bitter.
Well, exactly. Like cacao is actually incredibly complex. There's over 600 flavor nuances that actually makes up the flavor of cacao. So, and even these beans, they have a little husk that surrounds it as well. So basically I
had to spit that out. The husk.
So you can almost picture it a little bit like an almond. So it has like that skin around it. But what we do, we actually get rid of that husk. That's the first sort of step once we get the cacao from the plantation. And then we roast this as well. So it's like coffee and those kind of things. The flavor really develops once you roast the cacao beans as well.
And the dark chocolate, obviously there's milk chocolate, dark, I mentioned this range, the supreme, extra smooth, subtle, dark, ultimate dark, mild dark. You've got an array of the range of the dark chocolates. But
something for everyone.
Does that just depend on how much of the cacao bean that you put into? Is that what dictates?
Exactly. Those percentage that you see on a packaging of a Lindt Excellence block, for example, like to be called a dark chocolate, it only needs to have 35% cocoa inside that block, so you can actually legally call it dark chocolate. So the first block of Excellence that we made is that 70%. So that already has double the cacao content than what we actually need to have in there. So obviously the higher we go with cacao, the less room there is to put other ingredients into it, which is the main sort of part that brings the sweetness to the block. So the higher you go with the cocoa percentage, the less sweetness. And yes, the more of the attribute of the cacao that we actually use comes through in that sort of chocolate flavor as well.
And the health experts can't be wrong telling us that dark chocolate is actually good for you.
It's definitely good for the soul.
Well, I mean, you know, the health advice does vary, but I have heard that the darker the chocolate, the better it is for you. Is that the case?
There is studies like that,
Exactly.
but look, it's definitely something that's more something to be enjoyed and just savoured.
I love it. Very good. And you've got some great combinations because chocolate pairs very well with particular things. Chocolate and coffee. Whenever I have a coffee, I think I wouldn't mind a little bit of chocolate to go with it. But you've got the orange and chocolate. You've got also some combinations that are a little bit out there in my mind, but I guess they work. You've got mint intense, you've got raspberry intense, and a touch of sea salt. And chili and chocolate is another combination.
Chili and chocolate is actually one of the oldest combinations and pairings in chocolate, because even the Aztecs, because the cacao comes from South America originally, and even there they actually started to experiment with spices like vanilla and chili inside chocolate as well. So might sound a little bit exotic now, but it actually is one of those clever combinations that work really well. And same with the sea salt one, because we actually use like a hand-harvested sea salt called fleur de sel from France. So it's rather than just being salty, it has more of that umami, sort of more kind of that complex kind of flavor, and it actually rounds the flavor of the cacao off really, really nicely in the chocolate. So they might sound a little bit exotic, but we've worked all these recipes to perfection. So they bring the cacao flavors still through with that sort of addition to not overtake, but really to sort of harmonize with the actual chocolate flavor itself.
Yeah, and do you sort of completely just roll your eyes at some of the chocolate that is on the market that people do eat when yours is of such great quality? Because, you know, there's chocolate and there's chocolate.
Well, there is, but it's like with everything. There's like really top quality kind of products, and there's others out in the market, and there's probably, you know, a little bit of room for everyone out there as well. But when you sort of, even if you bake something, for example, like you make for Mother's Day, you prepare a chocolate mousse or make a chocolate fondue or a chocolate cake, use a good quality chocolate, and the result would be much, much better as well in the long run. And the same when you have a cup of coffee and have a square of chocolate with it, make it a good one.
Well, you haven't been to my place, because when it's just one square, you just can't stop. That's the problem. And they're perfectly designed, the size of the Lindt chocolate squares, where you think, I could just have another one. That one will be going down nicely.
Well, that's the beautiful thing with our Lindt Excellence. So we actually make that in a really thin profile. So once they're designed really to break that square off, and it melts really evenly and quickly on your palate, and really unfolding that glorious sort of flavor of the chocolate.
Yes, I'm going to be tucking into one of these in a moment. Don't you worry about that. And you've also provided us with some of these great chocolate recipes that we can use, including a chocolate cake recipe.
Nice. That's one of those really indulgent sort of cake recipes that we put together. It's actually like a black velvet chocolate cake. So it's got lots and lots of chocolate. It's really moist chocolate cake, and then filled with basically like a chocolate ganache. So this is really like the chocolate indulgence. But for Mother's Day, easy enough to just make a quick little, it might be a little bit tacky, but chocolate fondue is really something that's really quick and easy and will delight mums. So melt a little bit of cream and chocolate together, put it into a little ramekin, serve it with some strawberries, a little bit of chopped nuts as well. And I'm sure all the mums would be more than delighted with that.
Very good. I'll share some of those recipes, the chocolate cake recipe as well, on the 2GB and 4BC websites. Before I let you go, Wayne has called in with a question. Hi, Wayne.
Hi, how you going?
Well, thanks.
My question is, like, when you're tasting chocolate, as you no doubt do, how do you make sure, say you're tasting a mint chocolate, how do you make sure that mint taste doesn't follow over to the next flavour that you're tasting and compromise the taste?
Good question, Wayne.
That's a very good question.
Yeah.
So what we actually do, especially when we have to taste a lot of different chocolate products as well, a little palate cleanser in between is actually really good. So if you really want to be serious about the chocolate sort of tasting and want to clear that palate, just a little bit of plain white bread is actually a really good one to just clean your palate. Because especially if you have a zip of water or something, because cocoa butter, which is the sort of one of the key elements in chocolate as well, It doesn't actually melt away when you have the sip of water. So a little bit of bread helps along the way, or just something like a 70% straight excellence to just sort of neutralize the palate as well.
There you go. Wow, good question, Wayne. Thank you for that. Well, look, thank you for sharing all of your knowledge with chocolate, and I think it is just the perfect thing to talk about in the lead up to Mother's Day, or any day, frankly. Chocolate's for every day of the week, surely. Good on you, Thomas. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thomas Schnetzler there, and he is one of only 8 official Lindt chocolatiers in the world. And for more Lindt chocolate goodness, visit Lindt, Lindt.com.au.